All right. So here we go. We're recording. So thank you for joining for Global Azure Bootcamp 2022. I can't believe we've been doing this for gosh, it's been years now. Still miss doing these kinds of things in person, but you know, I'm glad that we've got the technology to be able to do these kinds of things remotely and in distributed settings like these. So really awesome that you were able to join, and very happy to be sharing this content with you, and guess we'll get going. This is how to keep a secret with Azure Key Vault. I'm Jim Wilcox out of the Granite State, which is New Hampshire over in the United States. And without further ado, I'll start running through slides. You know, this is what we're going to talk about today. We'll do some introductions and that sort of thing, and then we'll talk about what a secret is, what a key vault is, what kinds of entities a key vault manages, and then we'll do some code demos and stuff like that. So should be a fun one. I've done this presentation once before as part of a cybersecurity symposium a couple of weeks ago, and felt like it was a good candidate to reprise for Global Azure Bootcamp 2022. So here we are, and for an introduction, you know, I've already said I'm Jim Wilcox. I'm Microsoft MVP in developer technologies and have been for a few short years. Honestly, it was right before COVID kicked in, and so I still haven't gotten to go to Global MVP Summit, but we'll hopefully get to do that maybe in 2023. I run a bunch of different events and users groups, Granite State Code Camp and Windows platform developers, which has since sort of morphed into the .NET developers group here in the Granite State. We get a lot of folks from New Hampshire, of course, but of course we're just north of Boston too, so we get a good number of people up from there. And in the online world that COVID has put us in, we get people from all over the place now too. So I'm also an architect with Insight, formerly known as Insight Digital Innovation. We're now Insight Consulting Services, which a little bit more of a generalized term, but we kind of do a little bit of everything, or maybe even a lot of everything. People ask, you know, what does Insight do? And I say there's companies that, you know, build buildings and stuff like that. Well, Insight, you know, in terms of IT, kind of like builds towns and cities and stuff like that, complete with local services, you know, fire, ambulance, police, all that fun stuff, you know, just as a sort of allegory of the kinds of, you know, completeness of services that we offer. So I've also written a book. It's relatively fresh out there in the world here. It's called Faith Hacker. I'll let you take a look at that if you're interested. But other than that, I'm a husband and a dad, couple of really cool kids, and they're getting ready to graduate high school soon and getting into cars and all that stuff. Getting driver's licenses recently and all that. So, so I usually like to take a moment and ask a little bit about you, and where this is a really small audience. I'll if you don't mind, I'll ask, you know, are you where are you, and how can I make this most valuable to you here? Are you a C# developer, or
I'm in an admin role, in a security admin role for M365. I entered this area only a few months ago. Before that, I was as a working as a Windows sysadmin, and I had some context with app registration in M365 and how we can hopefully combine that with the Key Vault. That is where I come to this topic.
Gotcha. And welcome, Srinivasa. We're just getting rolling, and I usually like to ask a little bit about who my audience is and where we've got a relatively small audience. If you feel like it, feel free to introduce yourself. I usually like to just understand if particularly if you're into C# or something like that. This conversation is kind of geared toward .NET development, but I can try to make it a little bit more relevant to wherever you're at. And no obligation to speak up if you don't feel like it, but if you'd like to, feel free to come off mute and let us know who you are, and also be aware we are recording. All right, I will move along here. So, to begin with, this is all about Azure Key Vault, and of course, what Key Vault really is at the core of it is understanding. A lot of applications, especially, need a place to keep track of secrets, especially credentials, certificates, keys, that sort of thing that you don't necessarily want lying around in plain text where somebody could stumble on it or something like that. You definitely don't want to commit it to a code repository or any of that sort of thing. So what do you do with these things? I mean, the irony of secrets and that sort of thing, that the nature of them is that you create a secret, and then you need a place to store that secret, and then you run into all kinds of other interesting issues, like you usually need a password or something to get into your secrets vault, so the secret keeps on bubbling up. It becomes a not quite a whack-a-mole kind of situation. It just the ball moves. So it's like having a database password. You've got this password, you've got to protect it. You can't just put it in source code. So you protect it in something, and then you need to limit access to whatever that something is that you store it in, and turns out you just get another password. So now you need something to protect that password. So like I say, it kind of bubbles up a little bit, and that's an interesting problem that has been solved with Key Vaults in Azure. Something worth considering if you use it with managed identities and that sort of thing, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So again, a secret is really your passwords, your certificates, your keys, especially your private keys, that sort of thing that you need to make your application do the things that it needs to do in a world where you have to secure your communications, you have to secure your connection to external resources, and you can't rely on storing those things in your configuration files or places where they might be discovered by even other developers. It has to be extremely limited trust nowadays. So that's a common problem that Key Vault was created for. That basically a Key Vault itself is really just a simple, relatively speaking, but custom fit database. But under the hood is where it gets a little bit more interesting. It's got structures that are designed specifically to help you manage your certificates in your keys and a name value pair database, all of which, of course, is encrypted down to the actual persistence layer of your of the cloud, basically. So encrypted at rest. A very important particular piece. But this is a common problem that pretty much every application has, and this is why Microsoft actually invested in this technology and created it, because it really is sort of a turnkey solution for this particular problem, especially if you're already using Microsoft Azure solutions. So it's a really enhanced way to store that kind of sensitive information in a turnkey solution that enables you to sort of treat your secrets as, I kind of chuckle to myself because it's like, all right, where's the best place to put your secrets? It's not really a content delivery network, but on some level, it almost feels that way just because it's a globally performant way to access your secrets in a relatively straightforward way. Meant to store limited amounts of information, but of course, these are secrets. So, you definitely want to protect them and have them accessible, to the point where, if you can't get to your secrets, your application might fail or crash or not start up or something along those lines. So, you need it to be there, you need it to be solid, you need it to be reliable, and of course you need it to be secure. So this is what KeyVault is all about. And it's of course cloud-based. You can safeguard the encryption, the keys, secrets in advanced mode. You actually get a hardware security module, which is actually FIPS 140-2 level 2 validated. What that means is this stuff is encrypted all the way down to the hardware level, and even if somebody could figure out what physical device your information is stored on, if they so much as try to tamper with the physical hardware, it will actually scuttle itself. And you also have the option to bring your own keys and make use of those. So the advantage of that, of course, being that even Microsoft cannot read your content. They would have to have your private key in order to be able to actually read the content as well. So there's solid security on this across the board, all the way down to the data persistence layer. Any questions so far? Feel free to come off mute if you're up for it. If you have a question, this is a relatively small group, so I definitely don't mind doing things a little bit more interactively. So of course, the nice part about this is that it really is a turnkey solution. It's something that you can script or build out very quickly and load up as needed if necessary, or you can treat it as a sort of a safe that keeps your information over persisted for large portions of your company, or however it works out for you. We'll do some demos that show how easy it is to build one up. In fact, I currently don't have the key vault that we're going to use for the demos. I'm actually going to create it as part of our presentation here today. And of course, this is a global scale too. This is the interest. I kind of joke around about it being a CDN, a content delivery network for secrets. It has that feel to it when you're using it, but it is globally redundant and of course at cloud performance. And so these are definite features that you don't necessarily need to worry about in every circumstance, but larger organizations especially will need to understand that, especially if you're global as an organization as well. So so the types of entities that a Key Vault manages are fairly simple. There's three primary types that a Key Vault manages. There's keys, as in your public-private keys, for various different public key infrastructure settings that you might use, like security, SSL, or any kind of key signing, or a number of different applications. Secrets, of course, this is for sort of name value pairs, where you have unstructured data, you just give it a name and stick it in the Key Vault, and it gets stored at rest. This is really great for configuring an application. You can put all of your configuration settings into secrets and just load up your for example, your web applications app settings.json file can live almost entirely in an Azure Key Vault, and you won't have to worry about redeploying it necessarily, depending on how you set that up, or how you choose to use it. So that's without a doubt the simplest, but also in a lot of ways most flexible. And then, of course, there's a certificate store, and the certificate store is all about managing your signed certificates, the actual certificates that prove that, like, your website is the website it claims to be. These are things that were signed by other organizations to prove that you are who you claim to be. But you don't want them to get compromised or anything like that. So this is one of the three different types that Key Vault helps manage as far as that goes. So let's see here. I think so. We do have, basically, we do have the access policies that go on these keys. And the nice part about the access policies is that they are fairly robust. You've got the ability to enable virtual machine access for deployment, so you can encrypt your disk volume, the virtual disk, like right off the bat if you want to, and have a virtual machine spin up fully encrypted right off the right off the creation of it. And of course, resource manager for template deploy, so you can access things like passwords to other resources as you're deploying your resources. This is most commonly used in like a DevOps type scenario, where you're deploying an application as part of, say, a CI/CD pipeline. You build out your environment, configure it with all of the information that you need, including any keys or certificates or secrets. You run your tests as necessary, and then you tear it down, and all of that was protected by the content of Azure Key Vault in a scenario like that. So very cool stuff as far as that goes. Then, of course, for the different types of entities, you have, again, we have keys, secrets, and certificates. When you're dealing with keys, you've got a bunch of different access policies that you can apply on a user-by-user basis if you want to, or user group, or however you feel the need to manage these things. And these are as shown on this slide here. The management of the keys, which are, get a key, list all your keys, update a key. So sort of the CRUD operations. But notice you can actually create a key here if you want to. Import or delete or recover or backup, all of these things are available. You can also, without actually having to get the key, you can encrypt, decrypt, unwrap, wrap, verify, and sign, which is another nice feature of Azure Key Vault. So you can actually look to Key Vault to do these particular cryptographic operations. This is an interesting thing too. They recently added this special key operations, this purge. I don't know for sure, but I've long suspected that this is something that comes out of military operation. The idea that you need a big red button to scuttle everything that you've got, just in case the bad guys get access to stuff. So there is a purge operation that you can execute to pretty much purge everything in your key vault, and that is a special access policy that you get there. And as far as rotation, this is getting and setting your rotation policy, enforcing a rotation. In the case of cryptographic keys that expire and need to be managed in terms of timelines, being able to rotate your key set is very important, and also very cool as far as that goes. So lots of nice handy operations and features that you can secure by access policy down to resource, down to groups and roles and that sort of thing. So, and then of course the secrets are the simplest one. And pardon my typo in here. That should be backup. But anyway, so secrets are the simplest form of secret, thing that you might store in a key vault, and accordingly, the list of things that you can secure, the policies you can apply to secrets are relatively limited. But getting and listing and setting and deleting, recovering, backup, the purge, I won't spend a whole bunch of time there. But your certificate permissions, similar. So for the certificates that you store in Key Vault, you have the ability to manage access policies. Understanding the list of things that you can do with these types of entities sort of helps you understand a little better what these things are, and how Key Vault supports management of these things. So, again, you can, do your CRUD type operations with your certificates, but you can also manage the contacts, the certificate of certifying authorities. That's what the manage CAs and get CAs and list CAs. These are all about managing the certifying authorities and making sure that your certificate trust chain is maintained. So that, if a certificate up the chain, has a problem or expires, it gets compromised or something along those lines, you can quickly identify what certificates are impacted and manage those as well. So very handy stuff as far as that goes. Any questions to this point? I'm going through this relatively quickly, I think, and it's fairly dense, but all right, I won't delay too much here because we got some cool demos and stuff to dig in on next. And in fact, that's exactly where we're at. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to unshare for the moment and share my screen. And hopefully folks can see this. Let me know if this is hard to see, but what we're looking at here is a resource group, and I'm just going to create one for Global Azure Bootcamp today. And I always joke around, ooh, there's a West US 3 now. That's interesting. Just noticed that. So I'm just going to create a resource group real quick here for us to play in. And that is very quickly created. And I'm going to create a key vault in it. Okay. And this is exactly what I'm looking for right here. And I'm going to keep this in East US 2. So you have a choice. The big thing that you got to do is you have to pick a globally unique name, because this key vault gets registered in domain name registration. So I'm going to call this GAB2022 0506. And it has to be globally unique. So nobody else in the world can have a key vault with the same name. Like I say, because it gets registered in global domain name services. So you also have a couple of choices as far as the pricing tier. Standard is, generally speaking, good enough for most purposes. If you really want the industrial strength and need the hardware secure modules, that's what the premium is for. I'm just going to stick with standard for the demonstration purposes, because you can't really see the difference, generally speaking, anyway. And also relatively new feature, this and it's always fun doing a demo of cloud services, because every time you do it, they add new features. Stuff like this soft delete is enabled here. So if you do delete your key vault and then start trying to use it, it'll actually tell you your key vault has been deleted and is no longer active, but you could potentially recover it, which is a nice safety thing. And I'm going to go ahead and push through here. I have access to it myself. I don't need to enable access for virtual machines or resource manager or Azure Disk Encryption or any of that stuff right now. I am actually, this is select. So I've already gone through the the list of access policies, but this is where you actually see it right here. Is I'm creating an access policy for myself that looks like this, and I'm giving myself all of the key management operations by default, and all of the secret management operations, and all of the certificate management operations. And of course, this is actually my identity. So when I'm running the demos, I'm going to be running with my identity. And the advantage to that is that I don't have another secret to store. So let's go ahead and create this. Because the system already knows who I am. I'm already authenticated and authorized to use this key vault. That means that when I hit it, it's going to use my personal credentials to hit this key vault. And it won't have to ask me for another password that would then have to be protected somewhere. Thus solving that problem of, what I was talking about before, where you get a password to protect your database, but so you need to protect that password, you put it somewhere, and then you need to protect the somewhere that you put your password. So this solves that particular problem in the immediate term, just because I'm already authenticated and have access to it. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this here. And as you can see, this is the key vault that we created in Azure. And we have, access to the similar kinds of things that you can do. But down here are the, the actual types of entities that we talked about earlier in the presentation. The ability to, manage these, create or generate, import, whatever we need to do. I'm going to leave this for the moment, but I do need this Vault URI right now for the code demo. So before I go any further with the code demo, do I have any questions? Feel free to come off mute if you have a question. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and proceed with the code. And so I've kind of cooked up this nifty little C# application here, and basically the idea behind this is I have generally this fairly standard C# application with an app settings.json, and we'll take a look at this. So app settings.json, I have what I'm sort of mocking here is a demo secret configuration in the code, and I just write in it right here just as a note, that if this got committed to a code repository, this whatever secret this is would have to be considered compromised, especially if you have other people in the organization that shouldn't have access to this secret but do have access to the code repository. Also understand when you commit a secret to a code repository, even if you change it and recommit, the old version of that file is still in the repository. So it's really actually kind of hard once you commit a secret to a code repository to actually purge it from the code repository. Generally speaking, honestly, if you ever do that, it's easier to just change the password or whatever the secret is. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. And this is just a standard web application, web API. And it has already read the configuration. And in this first line of code right here, it actually reads the configuration that we just looked at. And the second line of code here, it actually gets the specific demo secret that we've got here. And if you look at this, you can see that this is what I had in that configuration file. So the short solution, if you're ever doing this and need to make sure that your password is safe, but you don't have a key vault set up, there is a way to do that. There is a thing called managing user secrets. So right here, there is this manage user secrets. And if I hit that, it will actually configure the application and give you this funny looking empty file here. So what do you do with that? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create an entry in here. This is a locally stored secret that won't get committed to a code repository, because it's also understand this isn't necessarily encrypted on the local disk. It's just stored separately. And the advantage of it is that it's in a place that only you can get to. It's secured by your user identity on your local computer. So now if I run this and I get back to the same breakpoint, I'm only going to go this far. If you notice, it doesn't use the content that was in the app settings.json. It uses this, locally stored secret that won't get committed to a code repository. That's great, but what about once you get to the point where you need to actually retrieve a secret from a shared secret provider? So what I'm actually going to do now is go into my app settings again and update the Key Vault with the one that that I just created. Okay, and this is the Global Azure Bootcamp 2022. Did I say 0505? I guess I did. I must have mistyped that on the day off. Oops. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to run my demo again, this time with the currently configured Key Vault. Okay, so the secret right now is still reading from this file locally, so it has not actually gone to the Key Vault to get the secret. Yes, we are going to be able to see how you could get the secret, but before we do, I'm going to go to Key Vault and put a secret in. And all we have to do is say, I'm going to call it down. This is actually kind of funny because this is like my browser has pre-populated these fields for me because I've done this a couple of times now. That's actually not a bad thing. I'm going to roll with it just because it's here. It is what we want it to be. If we want to, we can set an activation and an expiration date on these. So, it maybe doesn't become effective until, some other day in the future. And we also want to make sure that it stops being active on a certain period of time. You can check these off. By default, it's enabled, but we could just store it here and say it's not actually available. If you want to, you can also include a content type here, which is really nice because you can really treat it like a sort of like a CDN at that point. You can say this is application text, or you could say application JSON, or something along those lines. But so I'm going to go ahead and create that in any case. And now you can see here our demo secret is it actually keeps it versioned. So if you need to ever roll back to a previous version or something like that, you can still retrieve it and that sort of thing. It's fairly well mature at that point. So I'm going to go ahead and continue through my code, which I never actually stopped running. I'm going to step into this. So this get one secret direct from Vault is executing this little function right here. This is getting the URL from my configuration. You can see that this is the URL. And because I'm using the Azure Key Vault secrets library right here, I can actually say, give me a secret client and then get this particular demo secret right here. And so this is taking a moment. It's actually going out to that service. And as long as I got everything right, it should come back and it will have a secret in it. And actually, if you look, the secret is shh. So but this is just for demonstration purposes. Normally you would actually have a valid password or something along those lines in there. So you can inspect the code and get the the values if you're debugging and that sort of thing. So understand that in a debug environment, you definitely need a separate production service from your non-production vaults and that sort of thing, because people can actually step through the code and get these values right out of the code this way. But you can see that it did actually securely make the round trip and go get that secret. There was a little bit of overhead in it, and let me stop and rerun this because I want to show off that overhead here. So right here is the step where it actually gets the secret. And it's not, obviously not instant. This is actually taking a little bit longer than I'm used to seeing it. It took 9 seconds there. So, all right, that's probably not optimal if you need to do that on a regular basis. You probably want to, load up all of your secrets and cache them. And so that's exactly what I do in this. So in a .NET application, you have a thing called the iConfiguration, which is basically a dependency injectable store for your name value pairs that are that come from your app settings.json. And what it does is it flattens all of that content down into a symbol name value pair structure that you can then retrieve your configuration values from. Wouldn't it be really handy and simple and awesome if you could go to your Key Vault and load all of your configuration settings from that Key Vault, or at least override the ones that are in your app settings locally. And so that's exactly what this function does. So what I'm going to do here is load up the configuration, and I'm going to say, first of all, get me the Key Vault options, which tells me where the Key Vault is. So the one thing that you have to have in your local configuration, again, is really just this URL that points to the Key Vault you're using. So now that I've got that, I'm going to say configuration add Azure Key Vault, and it's literally a one line. This will probably take about the same period of time as getting the single value, because in the end, actually, interestingly enough, that was much faster. I got that in 3 seconds, probably because it's cached at this point. The caches are warmed up and that sort of thing. But now I can use the configuration builder to load that into configuration and get the secret value that way instead of going directly to the Key Vault. So essentially, you can think of it at this point as all of the secrets that were configured in that Key Vault are now cached in the application's configuration, which is generally speaking right where you need them. So I'm going to go ahead and let this run now. Any questions before I let this fly and continue on here? All right, I won't take too much longer here, but so I'm going to go ahead and let this roll, and this is going to launch our favorite little Swagger URL with the weather forecast here. And if we run this right now, I'm going to go ahead and, just for the fun of it, just run it. You can see that, zoom a little bit so you can see a little bit easier. I ran this. This is the command that it ran. This was the request URL it did the get from. And this is the response body, which is, just a list of mock weather forecasts for the next several days. And, this is the response headers, tells you a little bit about, how it generated that response. So I'm going to go ahead back to that code, and I'm going to show you actually how you can consume that. And what I did here, actually, by default, when you first build a .NET API application, it kind of comes stock out of the box looking like this. So in order to get the configuration into this so that I can take advantage of the settings, I'm going to add the iConfiguration to this, and it will now dependency inject the configuration, including the secrets. And I want to hold on to that. So I'm going to create on the fly here a new read-only field that contains that configuration. And then just for the fun of it down here, I'm going to say, I'm going to expose it just for demonstration purposes. Don't try this at home. Did I spell that right? Sometimes I do that. Whoops. Okay, but there is no demo secret property on there, so I'm actually going to just real quick just add it. Okay, pardon me just a second. I'll let somebody in here. Okay, so now I have added that, and I didn't mean to put a semicolon there. So this code is now good, having just added this property on the fly. And I'm going to go ahead and run this again. And I'm going to set a breakpoint here so that we can get to it. I'm going to skip right through these because we've already been through these demos. Come on, keep going here. All right. And this should bring up our Swagger here again. And I'm going to go ahead and run it. And at this point, I should now have a config file that shows, and I apologize, I realize that this is probably a little bit tough to see here. There's a bunch of configuration providers in here, and you don't, generally speaking, need to know this, but one of them is the Azure Key Vault, and you can see that it has one item in it, which is our demo secret, and the secret value here is exposed. But I'm going to go ahead and let this return its result. And you can see that it's actually put that value in the response. And so we've kind of gone all the way from the Azure Key Vault all the way through an API controller, making that configuration value available in a way that we can visually see it in an API call, just as a demonstration here. So that's pretty much it as far as the demonstration itself goes. Is there anything anybody wants to see otherwise, or have any questions about? Again, feel free to come off mute if you've got a question. All right, I won't argue too much. So I think that's basically what I've got here. I'm going to go ahead back to my slide deck real quick. Even though actually I think we're good as far as that goes. All right. So we did the create in the portal. We showed off the interface in the portal. And then we did, I did not create a key vault in the command line interface. We didn't quite have time for that. And I actually kept meaning to take that line out of here, but hold on, let me go back to that. If you are interested in seeing what a like a PowerShell or Azure AZ command line instruction looks like for creating and managing a key vault, this is the URL right here, this set of links. I think you can download this from the from this meeting chat. If not, I suppose it doesn't do much good for me to click on that because you can't see that, can you? There is also a tutorial right here that's worth checking out, and hopefully you can get to that as well. Actually, I think you might be able to click on these links right here, right now, and get to that. So, and we did show using, Visual Studio Secrets and the secrets file, and we looked at using the configuration in KeyVault in the .NET 6 API, and with that, that's basically all I had. And I will say thank you, unless there, like I say, any final questions before we let you move on to your next presentation.
Can you put also certificate into the Azure Vault? Can you give an example?
Yep. I'm not prepared to do a demo of putting a certificate in there. But this documentation should get you, a good chunk of the way toward that. I can show you, I guess. So we should be able to, for example, generate a certificate. And this is, let's see, I'll call this test 1, self-signed certificate for test1domain.com or something like that. Probably can't have punctuation in. CN equals. And this will actually create a certificate for us. And it gives us thumbprints, and we should be able to actually, use the client, the secrets client over here in program. Let's see, maybe it doesn't get, because that's just a secret client, not a certificate client. So you probably have to create a different client for that. So I apologize, I did not set up.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot that I wasn't sharing my screen. So I was. Here, let me share my screen. Sorry about that. So what I was looking at was that, this is the code that I've got here. I might be able to certificate. No, I'm not. I'd have to spend a little bit more time on it than that, but I believe that you can create a client that you'd be able to pull a certificate from in a manner like that, or manage the certificates in your Key Vault through code like this. So like I say, I apologize. I didn't come prepared to demonstrate the certificates or the the actual keys. But this is all programmatically available, and let me see if I can find documentation on that real quick. Yeah, so it's actually a separate library. So this is a KeyVault certificate client library for .NET, and you can add a package for identity, and it looks like you create a new certificate client, and that's how all of that works. So hopefully, I apologize, this URL might be a little bit tough to read, but I promise if you do a search in docs.microsoft.com, you'll find this, and be able to do the C# code involved in pulling certificates or managing certificates this way. So
this was very helpful. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. I guess with that, I will say thank you very much for joining, and I will let you move along to whatever's next for you at Global Azure Bootcamp.
Thanks. Good presentation.
All right. Thank you again for coming, and I hope you have a great event. Take care.